When we were commissioned to design the Abijo Mosque, the design that we ended up with wasn't what we started out with when we submitted our concept design. As we were going to break ground, I decided that, we should do something different. My name is Adeyemo Shokunbi. I am a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. I am the project architect on the Abijo Mosque, which is also known as the Crescent Bearers 1939 Mosque in Abijo. We actually had done a couple of iterations over a period of time. I think the very first one was 2011. After the submission of that first concept design, we were asked to come up with a slightly different, a smaller scale design to the first one that we had done. The very first one was meant to have been an Islamic center added to it. This was the design that was approved at that point in time. It wasn't as densely populated as it has now become. The second iteration that we got approval to build, as soon as we were going to break ground, they asked us to scale down even further to a bungalow structure, which we did. And that's the one that we were given the green light to execute. At that point in time, the design was still very, in the language, very Islamic. It had Islamic ornamental approach or language. That was what we started out with. It was just as we were going to break ground that I took matters into my own hand, because the second iteration had all the ancillary spaces, the ablution, the conveniences attached to the floor plate. And I wanted to maximize the plan. So I got rid of all the additional spaces in order to be able to have a bigger plan that would accommodate, because at that time it was going to be a space that was going to be used by both women and men worshippers. So we needed to maximize it.
Working closely with architect Adeyemo Shokunbi, who had the vision and informed me about the opportunity to be a part of the project, I immediately aligned myself accordingly. The project started around 2019 and it was done by the end of 2020.
As architects, we evolve over time, and I had come to the realization that because it was a project that we were trying to be as cost-effective as possible, I wanted it to be a building that was of low maintenance, that was going to use locally sourced material. We were working on a project in the University of Lagos at that same period. And it was a project that afforded us the opportunity to experiment, trying to see how we could develop a language that we felt was, at that time, very necessary for us as a studio. Laterite and other locally sourced material was something that we had started to play around with. It started to become a little bit more clearer to us when we started the Mosque project that, okay, this building, being that we want it to be low maintenance, and because, like I said, we're experimenting with traditional materiality, laterite was the easy choice to make. When you look at the architecture and you look at the form, you will still see it as being very modern, but we managed to ensure that in as much as we stripped the buildings of the typical Islamic ornamental strategy, we made it very bare. You will know that it is a mosque, no matter what. We have the minarets and we have the Minbar, obviously, from the inside of the mosque. Trying to keep it very simple, but being very conscious of the end user in terms of circulation, in terms of how you move around. So instead of having male, female worshippers on the same level, I said to the client being the Crescent Bearers, because they had a limited budget, that I'll take it upon myself to add a mezzanine so that the women worshippers could make use of that.
So here's the Abijo Mosque. For me, this isn't just a building, it's a conversation. From the moment you walk in, you can feel the pulse of the sacred space. The design embraces openness as well, which is evident through the absence of columns, forcing the community to gather, unite, and find solace. The most challenging process, is trying to harmonize your ideas with drawings and then translating it on site and communicating it to the workers on site and trying to execute it to perfection. It was challenging because it required me being more hands-on and everyone, the whole team being more hands-on in trying to realize certain aspect of the project. The minaret that has those triangular perforations of various sizes required my actual presence at that point with the guys that were working on the details and to cut out those triangular perforations to ensure that they weren't getting in the way of the steel frame behind them. And we also had an idea for how we wanted that to be translated. We wanted to make it seem like you were pouring the perforations onto the minaret. That's why you see how it spreads. And so that's why it was the most challenging aspect of the project.
One thing that happens generally is that mosques tend to be quite empty on your regular days. So what we did was to try and contain the praying hall during those moments when it's not full capacity. We have these sliding panels that are in the closed position, but in order to still ventilate the space, we have these louvers that can be opened just so that you can have cross ventilation. The way that the building functioned, we didn't want to have any mechanical air conditioning or the likes. We wanted it to be natural as best as we possibly could have it. But worst case scenario, we have fans that could help push the air. But the strategic location of sliding panels made it very easy to deal with that. And also using laterite to clad the building, so to speak, it helped with the cooling effect that the internal space has. Because if you're in that space, it feels like the air conditioning is on. We had high level windows so that hot air could rise and flow out of these upper louvered windows.
Along the line where we started getting the laterite materials from several locations, the gradient, the color gradient was different. Ensuring that we get the right gradient from the right place, the right source, getting everything from the right place was very important for the exterior skin of the building.
The end user was very paramount in everything that we considered. There's no point in building or designing a building that just doesn't serve the end user. In 2020 March, I think, we had COVID. So that was a challenge in itself because the construction didn't go as it was going prior to the pandemic. So we had to rethink how to work. I had promised that I was going to fund the mezzanine. And by adding a mezzanine to the building meant that the overall height had to increase. We were very lucky to have very willing and charitable individuals who donated money, and in some cases they donated material just so that we could complete the project.
While the project was ongoing, then when we started to work on the skin, that's the laterite application to the exterior, and just being on site and seeing people pass by and just stop and stare and look at the building in admiration, that was very warming to see. You can also see their curiosity as to what kind of building this is, because at the time it wasn't clear to anyone that it was a mosque until you walk into the space. It's like a reminder that true beauty lies in simplicity. And so we've been able to do that. But for anyone coming in after admiring the exterior and the interior of the space, I really want them to experience the tranquility that the space provides, the peace and quiet.
The people that you have designed a space or a building for, you can see it, that they are happy to be in that space. You can see it that the way that the space makes them feel. First of all, it's a religious building, and there's a certain kind of psychological effect that brings to how an end user makes use of a space, because they know it's a place of worship. So they have to conduct themselves in a certain type of way. But nonetheless, if it hasn't been designed properly, if it hasn't been considered, if it hasn't been articulated, you would always know it from how the end user responds to the space. From an architectural point of view, Abijo Mosque for us has become an iconic building. It has been a success for us. It's been a success on many levels. We tried to be as honest and tried to be as simple. We were being mindful of creating what we have now termed a new alternative Nigerian architecture. And I think Abijo Mosque has enabled us to start that conversation. It has started, and we are very lucky to be in the position that we're in. We are trying to improve on it, and we're just very determined that, just like some aspects of the creative space in Nigeria, architecture has a role to play in that conversation. We want to create an identity for a Nigerian architecture. People might ask, what is a Nigerian architecture? What language does it speak? It's one of those things that when you see it, you know it. And we are not relenting, because it's a journey. We are very adamant that it is time that you can describe a Nigerian architecture wholeheartedly. And we are trying to have that conversation, not just with ourselves, but in the ecosystem and in the architectural space in Nigeria and in Africa.